righty. Good morning, everybody. It is a beautiful Wednesday morning. The sky is every color. And I didn't take one of my award-winning photographs this morning, but our guest did. He actually went to the balcony outside here and decided he needed to take a picture. Our guest this morning, none other than someone who I've been pleased and privileged to do a lot of shows with over the last couple of years. Someone who's been in broadcasting and media for a long, long time. And is an entrepreneur and an independent thinker all on his own too. He is Kanthan Pillay. It's nice to have you here in this environment for a change.
You know, this place is just so incredibly gorgeous. Am I allowed to drop F-bombs on the show?
Yeah, of course you can.
Okay, this place is fucking gorgeous.
Thanks, man.
And
Thanks.
yeah, that sunrise up there was
nice,
wow.
Huh?
Yeah. Getting to see that every morning, I think would be
it's quite inspiring.
Pretty much it's a cool
Only
way
problem
to
is
wake
in winter, you get here and like by 6:30, it isn't even light yet. So that I'm not looking forward to. Nobody does, but you know what? It has its own charms. We've got this freezing cold studio. In winter, it's even colder. It's great. So I see lots going on in the comments already. Bitcoin But saying, "Morning, everybody. Finally, we get to say goodbye to those fucking paper straws. That cuck was horrific and useless." I could not agree more. I am not a fan, never have been a fan. I think I went out one morning with you and I think I ordered a orange juice or something and they brought one of those bloody paper straws. And within, 10 minutes of orange juice arriving.
The straw kind of just collapses and dissolves.
And then it makes this gross stuff at the bottom that
But you know there's a South African company that actually came up with kind of biodegradable plastic straws, which I think is great.
That's the way to go.
You consider that we've got people out here who say, now, hang on a second, there's a global trend. Let's actually go out and do this thing.
Well, I mean, I was talking to someone interestingly enough about this just the other day, and we were talking about how cigarettes, in fact, it was on Monday's show, cigarette butts are now biodegradable. They used to last forever. Remember, you'd see them on the beaches everywhere and all that kind of thing. There are all sorts of things that are now being done that you don't even realize are these incremental improvements that are happening here, there, and everywhere. And then there are those huge and sweeping improvements that are made by executive order from the White House.
Just pro tip, people, the fact that they're biodegradable, these cigarette butts, do not swallow them.
Oh, no. That's not a good idea. All right. So listen, I know people are going to be interested in us talking a little bit about the South Africa-US situation, the changes that Trump is busy making to the executive branch of government in the US. There's lots of that stuff we've got to get into, but today is by no means going to be all about politics. And when we sat down, Kanthan was actually telling me about his story, because we're going to be talking to someone a little bit later on in the window seat about some beautiful places in Mauritius, which is a very, very popular South African tourist destination. As you know, we've discussed it before on the show. And I was saying to him, wow, these are very sexy properties. I mean, there's 4 luxury resorts that these this hotel group has there. And I said to him, I wonder why the guy who we're going to be talking to this morning is based in Durban. And so Kanthan said, oh, no, it's probably because if the flights are cancelled, you can always hop in a boat and, swim to Mauritius. It would be about a Robinson Crusoe-ish 100 days, but it can be done.
Yeah, very much so. And depending on the time of the year, I think this time of year, we're not quite at that cyclone period yet.
I don't think you want to be in a canoe, It can be what humans have done over the years. If you think about how, people got onto those little wooden boats and they sailed across vast oceans. I mean, I heard the story the other day for the first time, and this will get us to your story in a second. About these Portuguese explorers, the ones in the late 1400s, like Vasco da Gama and people like that, the most arduous circumstances imaginable on boats that could fall apart at any moment, often did, sailors that were constantly sick and or mutinying. It's amazing to me that half of the earth was connected up during those years. Probably more than half the earth.
The trick is to actually imagine what the smell would have been like
on
those ships.
Oh, my God. So you then started telling me about your grandfather, not when we were talking about the smell on the ship, but when we were talking about your family history, because I'm always interested in this stuff. And, even though I've known Kanthan for a long time, we've never even had this discussion. And I thought, no, hold. Let's have it on the show. So how are your family connected to? I didn't know this.
So circa
Mauritius.
1974, when I was
74. That's not long
no,
ago.
no, wait a second. Circa 1974, when I was at boarding school in India,
Yeah.
and my uncle came visiting to India because he was on a quest to try and find out where our ancestors came from.
Right.
And he eventually ended up in a town almost close to the southern tip of India. And the southern tip of India is Cape Comorin, which is very cool because you've got the Bay of Bengal on one side, the Arabian Sea on the other side.
Right.
And it's one of the few places in the world where you can see sunrise and sunset over the sea at the same from the same location.
And then if you go due south, you'll hit Sri Lanka.
Yeah, pretty much. And my uncle pitches up, and so he goes on a quest to this village. He knew where his father had come from, and at that time he was able to literally go from house to house and say, "I am looking for the Ndlovu Pillay household." And eventually, someone points him to a house on a hill, and he goes up over there, and it's the incredibly palatial home, and there's a sweeping driveway, which was large enough to actually accommodate a horse-drawn carriage.
Wow.
Because that was the style that the Brits had actually put in place. And he walks into the
you didn't say evil colonialist Brits.
The evil colonialists.
Yeah, I mean,
sorry,
do it properly.
I've got to work on this. This deputy white thing is kind of new to me. So he walks into the place, and there's kind of like a butler type person who says, wait here, and there, hanging in the foyer, is a picture of his father, my grandfather.
You're joking.
Decked out in kind of finery, and dressed like he's some prince in a Bollywood movie.
Unbelievable.
And
that's what people dream they discover, right?
Yeah.
Because everyone dreams that they'll find out that they're related to and descended from this long list of illustrious people who dressed like that and had horse-drawn carriages and a long sweeping driveway. And then, of course, most of us, when we find out, it's like a horrible, tumble-down, broken wooden hut.
well, in this case, it was nothing of the sort, because it turned out that so my grandfather was the firstborn son and was the heir apparent to the family estate, and they were basically the richest landowners in this town called Nagarkoil. And my grandfather's father had wanted his son to, start taking over the family business, the estate, and my grandfather was having none of it. And he was.
Was he just a rebel?
Yeah, he was just a rebel. He was in his teens at.
I wondered where you got it from. You see, I think there's part of you that's probably bitter and resentful that he didn't stay there, and you could have.
No, not at all.
You could have lived there,
no, absolutely.
It sounds like not a bad place.
No, it doesn't.
You just explained the sunrise and the sunset over the sea.
Well, you have to go slightly further south for that.
Okay, but still,
but so you
doesn't sound like a bad house.
No, it's not like a bad house at all. And then he gets told the story that my grandfather had these constant fights with his father because he refused to take over the family business and wanted to kind of. And eventually, he got to the point where he told his father, "If you raise the subject one more time, I will head straight out of here. I will walk down to Cape Comorin. I will get onto the first ship that I find, and you will never see me again." And sure enough, 6 months later, his father raised it up again, and my grandfather walked straight out, headed down to Cape Comorin,
and never went back.
Boarded a ship from there to Mauritius, ended up in Mauritius for a while, where he happened to meet my grandmother's family. And he decided, I really like this chick. And so he decided that he was going to follow them. They were Mauritian born.
Right. So what do they call those? Did they speak Creole?
I have no idea what they spoke at the time. I assume it was French at the time.
I've met a couple of people who have links and roots in Mauritius. It's a fascinating place, actually.
Yeah.
Because there's such a mix of all kinds of cultures and languages and things there. And obviously now more so than ever, right? Because you've got to become this tourist destination. But I mean, before, because it wasn't a big slave place. It was more sort of place that people went to escape that.
Sure.
So they would leave the east coast of Africa. And remember, it was only discovered and mapped by the Europeans, in the 1630s, somewhere around there. So they've got an amazing history. And when you land there, the airport is called Sir Sibu Sega Ramgulam Airport.
Yes,
I mean, that's a hell of a name when you see
Uh-huh.
it written on the thing and you're like, what? But yeah, there are lots of people from there that they have, French ancestry and East African and Indian and Malay and all kinds of things.
Yeah. So in the case of my grandfather, he then decided that he wanted to follow this family down to South Africa. So he got himself signed up as an indentured laborer.
Oh wow,
So
that's
that
not something most people would
so
want
that he
to do.
could get free passage to Durban.
Huh.
And he headed down to Durban and proceeded to have 11 kids with my grandmother, of which 8 survived, and my father was the youngest.
Sure.
Yeah, but
What a story.
But from the records that I was able to trace back, he was born around about 1863, and
Okay.
so arrived finally in 1881 in Durban, roughly.
What a story.
Yeah.
Have you ever been to the old sort of family in India?
No, I haven't.
Even though you were there in boarding school.
Yeah, I was there in boarding school, but it's kind of off the beaten track, so you have to make a deliberate effort to get down.
And 100 years is a long time, and a lot can happen, right?
Yeah,
just shows you.
Well, you consider that my youngest daughter was born in 2016, and he was born. So this is like just these 3 generations, like spanning.
It's amazing. That's a huge amount of time that's being spanned there.
3 centuries.
So, all right, let's get into some stuff, because obviously all we've heard from our government in the last while is how unfair and unkind and mean Donald Trump is, and then from the people on Twitter who have lots to say. We don't need America. There are no farm murders. Everybody is overreacting. You get presidential spokespeople saying we don't need to listen to this U.S. embassy nonsense that they're putting out, the fact sheet that they dropped, because we have the UN Office for Human Rights based here, and they're much more important.
And Trump is going to defund them so quickly.
I hope so. I really hope so. And then people say, well, people like you and I are excited about this because we're just horrible people who don't like seeing people getting ARVs, for example, which is a totally unrelated side issue to what USAID does.
You see, the single thing that we could do right now to fix all of this immediately,
tell me,
is to just install a meritocracy. That's all you need to do. You just simply need to say, we are crossing out all of our race-based legislation.
They won't do it. The government won't do it.
No.
Why won't they do it?
They won't do it because that's the only way that they feed.
They wouldn't be in their jobs. There's not one person in our government, I include all the other parties as well, who seems to be competent.
Look, you and I have been talking for years about the fact that if you want to uplift people in this country, just make poverty the marker. Okay, so you want to give preferential contracts, give it to poor people. And it turns out that the majority of the poor people are going to be Black South Africans. But you're not going to have the situation where you're alienating everyone else in the population just simply because of the fact that you're saying you're second-class citizens, which is effectively what it is.
Well, a lot of those people who the government is calling second-class citizens, even if they're not saying it directly, are the ones who are as furious as they have every right to be on social media.
Yeah.
Okay, so some of these people yesterday responded to something I put up. I said, competence really frightens incompetent people, which is true. This is why people are reacting emotionally rather than reacting with a good argument, presenting. And there are plenty of people who are, by the way. I mean, I'm obviously picking on the people who don't come up with good arguments because there are more of them. But the responses all had something to do. They came in 2 forms. Some of the responses were thoughtful and like, yeah, but how do we get to a point where we have more competent people who can run the economy, right? Which is a good point. We spend more proportionally than any other country in Africa, and we have the lowest levels of literacy and numeracy on the continent, which is a frightening statistic. And if you think about our education department, it has failed comprehensively to give comprehensive education to anybody. But that's one group of the people who are asking, How do we fix this? Good question. Those are the people you want to engage with. That's the whole reason you have social media, I would think. And then there's another group who like throw these bizarre arguments around, like, oh, you're frightened of equality, which is,
Of course, I'm frightened of equality.
No,
I don't want all of us to be poor. Come on.
but it's ludicrous to even imagine. I mean, like, what kind of cloud cuckoo land do you have to live in? And I want us to just talk about this for a little bit, because you'll probably be able to explain it much better than me. Certainly, you've explained some stuff to me in the past, and I've gone, oh, okay, yeah, now it makes sense. What is this fantasy, this unicorn rainbow land that has been sold to people where everybody will be the same? And I mean, I said to this one girl who was like, you know, she said something about, oh, you know, you're frightened of equality or something to that effect. And I said, no, there's no such thing as equality. Because, for example, I said to her, you're in the lowest percentile for good looks, right? So you understand, like, not everybody's equal. I wish I was smarter. I wish I was a little bit taller. I wish I was a ball. I wish I had a girl who looked good. I would call her. Like, all of that kind of shit, right? There's everything, everybody in you think, you look at somebody who you imagine is very happy and successful, and they always are unhappy about one thing in their lives, maybe more than one thing. So equality.
I don't relate to that at all, Gareth.
Okay, well,
so
whatever.
You know.
But
Okay.
equality as an idea is preposterous, because the whole reason that makes it
So the
fun to
question
live
that
here
I
is that we're
always
not all
ask,
clones of each
the
other.
question that I always ask is, show me where it actually happens.
Doesn't.
Nowhere in the world. But what you can have is a situation where you're raising minimum standards of level across the board. And we already know the easiest way to do that. You unshackle the economy, you remove all of these regulations, which actually produces a massive uptick in terms of GDP, which then leads to a massive uptick in terms of revenue, which means you've got more money to then plow back into doing all of these crazy social programs that people want to do. The fact of the matter is that if we're an incredibly wealthy country, we can actually afford social grants. But right now we can't. We're borrowing in order to pay these things.
Yeah, I mean, the president's State of the Nation address, which I missed last week, he was boasting about it, not just just talking about how we're
I watched it
money
after the fact, and just a pro tip out here: all of these things, just watch it after the fact and put it on double speed on YouTube, and you can get the gist of it very quickly.
I don't know why anybody bothers with any of that stuff anymore. You can get ChatGPT to summarize the whole thing.
Because you want to watch ugly, fat people parading in Parliament.
And there's a lot of our people are fat.
I think we should vote on
right?
based on body mass index. What do you think?
So what you should, if you're extremely fat, you get less votes.
Yeah, exactly.
Because you're eating for more people.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. So by that standard, Julius Malema would probably be voted in.
Yeah, because he's quite thin at the moment.
Yeah.
And he's having a rough time here. I mean, I know that Elon wants him put on some international terror list, but let's just be a little sympathetic. I mean, the guy just recently, this week, he's lost Mbuyiseni Ndlovu. Says he wants to leave politics. He's had enough. Wants to probably go into academia. I don't know, because it's hard to tell what people really want. And then Floyd obviously left a while ago. Dali left. It's pretty much everybody who was in the upper echelons and the superstructure of the EFF has just abandoned him.
But he's still got Carl Niehaus.
He's got Carl Niehaus, but I mean, if that's slim pickings, if ever there was. I feel sorry for him. I'm glad for him that this US thing happened now when it did, because it gave oxygen to him just for a little bit longer. But the guy's looking harassed. I heard stories about how he's checked into an institution to sort himself out a little bit, or that was a while ago. I don't know if it's true. These are things that you hear, Siago Boza. But
most of his bots still seem to think that he's going to be the next president. So
I said that once. I did say that once. And he did have the ability, if he'd managed himself better, to have got to that point where we would have been inevitably faced with a Malema presidency. But he's just got such a combative and angry soul that it just seems like he's his own worst enemy. He self-sabotages.
One of the things that we should realize is that when people want to be left alone, you should normally leave them alone. And a lot of these chains of events that we see right now are based on the fact that people were picked on who should not have been picked on.
Yeah.
So the reason why Trump is president is because Musk got tired of being picked on and decided that he was going to be fighting back.
Well, Trump got tired of being picked on too.
Yeah.
Right. So
But-
a lot of people, there's the White House Correspondents' Dinner coming up, and they're talking about whether or not Trump's going to be there, and he probably will. I mean, if anything, he's shown that he has a thick skin and
Yes.
he can handle a joke. But a lot of people referred to the fact that when Obama was president, there was that joke that Obama made about, oh, Donald Trump thinks he's going to be president. And he was in the audience.
Yes.
And then Obama made a couple of jokes about him. And a lot of people think that that was the moment he decided, fuck you, I'm going to do this.
Yes.
Right? And
Mhm.
Elon Musk was one of, he was the most influential person in the electric car business in America. And they had an electric car meeting at the White House, and they didn't invite him on purpose.
Yes.
And at that
Even
moment,
though he produced more electric cars than the rest of the electric car manufacturers in the world put
Right.
together.
and at that moment, everybody thought that, he's going to just quietly carry on doing his, but he was like, fuck you, I'm coming back at you. So you got to be careful who you piss off, and especially if you piss off people who are truly talented and different and hold a grudge and are a little autistic and a little gifted in business, because they will come after you. For some of them, it's not just ego. It's like, okay, you've given me something to fight against here. Now I have a purpose.
Well, again, in terms of leaving people alone, if people had just left Jacob Zuma alone,
Yeah, exactly. Instead of harassing him.
he would have just hung out in Kandla, with his tunnels that go to his various wives. And you've seen those reports back there of
No,
the
tell me.
architecture.
What's
Well,
this? What are you
with-
talking about?
Yeah, at Nkandla. So they're separate dwellings for
Yeah.
multiple wives.
And there are a couple of them. I mean, it's a compound. It's probably about 20 different.
Yeah,
Building.
but there's, for security purposes, there's
Yeah.
underground access
Oh, really?
between these.
So what,
these
the trap door
residences.
opens up at what happens?
This is. I mean, I want to write the movie script for the life in the Zuma household. But again, they couldn't leave the guy alone. They insisted on putting him in jail on the flimsiest of charges possible. I mean,
So
you
then
send the guy to jail for contempt of court, and you deliberately give him a sentence that's long enough that he's not allowed to get into parliament.
Mhm.
And it's
and
the
then
first and last time that the Constitutional Court has imposed a sentence.
it's ridiculous, actually. And that proves that our constitutional court is a political machine.
Absolutely.
And by the way, he went on to create, almost single-handedly, the biggest new party in the country overnight,
Yes.
virtually, because it was 6 months before the election they
Mhm.
launched MK. And he even had to discipline. Now, this is the other big story yesterday. I don't know if you saw this, but if anybody was paying attention to South African Twitter, you would have seen Duduzile Zuma and Floyd Shivambu. Wow, big fight going on there. Lots of anger, lots of fuck you. There was Duduzile went to town. She's like, fuck you, Floyd, and all of this stuff. And I saw it on Monday night. I thought, what the hell's happening here? And then it was all kind of, the fire was put out by who? By Ubaba.
Uh-huh.
He said, you apologized to Floyd.
And there was
So-
a very public apology. Yeah.
But a bit of a step down for her,
Yeah.
but still a very interesting kind of development. I mean, that's a family business, right? MK is a family business.
Well, if it was truly a family business, I think he would have doubled down against Floyd, and he didn't.
Okay, so it's a real party.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
You're a real boy.
I think he certainly understands that the way in which he's going to consolidate his power is precisely by not pandering to his daughter's outbursts.
Yeah,
Mm.
she is out of control.
Yeah. Well,
Spoiled.
you've probably heard that saying that all women are bi. It's a question of whether it's
Bipolar
polar
or bisexual.
bisexual. Now I'm going to get so much flack for that one.
All right.
I'm so glad we can tell off-color jokes again.
I know we're allowed. It feels like things have been opened up, and we're a little more. There's a relief. there's definitely a tangible sense of relief.
You see,
So-
I was telling jokes with my 8-year-old, soon to be 9-year-old, and inevitably, when you got kids that age, you get to knock jokes, and of course, I thought of one which I couldn't really tell her, but I'm going to put it out here, which is knock knock.
Who's that?
Little Boy Blue.
Little Boy Blue.
Michael Jackson. Now,
yeah, that's not great for an 8-year-old.
Now,
I
yeah,
mean,
but
that was his target
okay,
market. But
the point is that
point.
okay, and don't get me wrong, because the idea that Jackson was in any way a pedophile has been systematically debunked and so what I'm saying is that we still had this ability to be able to tell off-color jokes, even though the underlying premise was kind of flawed, and suddenly it was, I'm offended by that.
Yeah,
and now we're back.
How do we let those offended people, and we've got to be careful not to let this happen again, because it's amazing how short people's memories are, right? I thought about how we all behaved during COVID, and it's just ridiculous now. If I think back to it, I would be like, they'd have to come and push the mask onto my face and tie it to me and weld it onto my head, because there's no way I'd ever do that shit again. And yet we all did it, and we all fell for this crap of like, I'm offended, and then we need to stop being funny or having a sense of humor in general, or being playful. All of that had to go away because some small group of intransigent people just decided they weren't going to put up with it anymore. And we all went with it. We were like, okay. I mean, I don't know that I ever did. And I kind of carried on breaking the rules and hurting their feelings regardless. But for a little while, I think I was even cowed into submission. And I'm embarrassed about that. I feel like I let myself down by being persuaded by bullshit arguments to do bullshit things.
Well, to a large extent, we were forced into doing particular things because, in my case, the reason why I ended up getting vaccinated is because of the fact that I needed to travel.
Same here.
And
I got the first one. I never got the second.
Yeah, but you could not travel out of the country unless you actually had that.
By the way, have you heard all these people who are offering to get your system cleaned out of those?
Oh, it's a real
spike
thing.
Proteins and things.
So,
right, so friends of mine have done all kinds of. They've done medicine. What would you even call prescriptions over a period of like 2-3 months to get these things out of their systems. They've been through procedures, not like invasive surgical procedures, but procedures where they do certain things every day to try and get rid of these spike proteins. And I mean, they're taking it very seriously. It made me think maybe I should actually look into it.
The myocarditis is a real thing.
Yeah.
And there are people that I know of personally who have been going through systematic treatment specifically to remove accumulation of fluid around the heart. And yeah, so I was lucky because none of that stuff came in my direction, but it's a real thing. And I've been telling lots of people who've, in the post-vaccination period, if, their energy levels have been down or, they having difficulty in terms of...
And if they go through this protocol, do they improve?
Yes, they do. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah. It's a slow and systematic process, but the starting point is, you got to go for a full body scan. They'll check out whether there has been any of that stuff.
Or do you go to the laboratories? You go to the GP?
Basically, it starts with your GP. But yeah, there are lots of doctors that are actually specializing in this stuff right now.
Raven says, I had to be vaccinated or I would have lost my job here in New Zealand. Yeah, you had that terrible bitch, Jacinda Ardern, didn't you? Awful, fucking horse-faced, terrible, terrible woman. And her husband, her stay-at-home husband, do you remember him?
But if you compare Ardern from the start of COVID to the time that she stepped down from office, she just kind of...
It was a real fall from grace.
No, but she withered physically.
She still... I mean, listen, you could actually see how much... There was a picture somebody shared. See if you can find this, James. Picture of Jacinda Ardern before she went into politics. and then what she looked like when she resigned as prime minister eventually.
Yeah, she just became emaciated
and hideous,
like from a horror movie.
She's really terrible. But this is apparently, this happens to people. You know, we always used to look at those pictures of like Obama with the full head of hair and no gray. And then we see him at the end and he's like, you know, grayer. Donald Trump is the same. He looks exactly the same as he did 8 years ago. It's incredible. I don't understand it. And obviously this is a thing that affects only left wingers. They get considerably worse over time.
I guess it is the case because you consider this year, by the way, it's going to be 4 years since my 60th birthday, which you were at. Which
that's right, I was. But you've been grey for a long time.
Yeah,
it's a sophisticated kind of what do they call it? Where you're
silver fox is what my wife says.
Yeah, but there's a word. It's sort of dignified and mysterious. Have you got that picture? Oh my God. It's a good point about Jacinda. Raven, I'm so embarrassed for you. I mean, I know we've got our own problems with our politicians here, but I'm embarrassed for you that you guys went through that in New Zealand. I don't think in South Africa we ever really took it seriously. Like, you know, certainly in the townships, nobody cared.
Well, the townships never cared. And
didn't give a shit.
The townships have always been an entirely different economy.
But even in, I mean, like, I remember someone tried to tell me I couldn't do something in my own house or on my own property, like the homeowners association. I just climbed into them and they didn't have a good argument against it, so they left me alone.
I got pulled over by a metro policeman who asked me why I was not wearing a mask in my car.
What did you say?
I said, when you sleep alone, do you wear a condom? And he was so pissed off. I cannot tell you.
Yeah, because it was, to him, enforce this dumb rule regardless. I mean, remember those people who were arrested on the beaches? It was crazy.
You know,
this is not long ago. Ooh,
I was on the beach.
Look at that.
Oh my word! Yeah, look at that.
Terrible. Yeah, but she used to actually, like, that's not even a great picture on the left, but she used to be quite attractive.
Yes.
Like when she was at varsity or whatever. And I mean, I know that age affects all of us, right? And this is not an age thing.
No, I think it's something that particularly happens with women on the left.
Yeah.
And
ugly.
We saw that pattern in terms of the woman who was Prime Minister of Finland.
Yes, shame. She also used to be quite attractive.
And then there's Kaja Kallas, who was the Prime Minister of Estonia, who's now moved into the EU. I forget what.
Well, have you seen how hideous Greta Thunberg is turning? Also, it's the left. Yeah, it eats your soul.
Yeah, but she was always kind of like.
Jesus, I thought about her the other day. I don't know why. She came up in my thoughts because now she's an adult, right? So you're not beating up on children.
Well, I was thinking.
But you remember her standing up there and all these people in the world allowing this idiot child who really, you know, she was just like, she had serious problems, whatever it might be. And it wasn't her, you are taking away my childhood. Do you remember saying, how dare you? How dare you? And I thought, who the hell's being persuaded by this shit? But they were.
The interesting thing for me is that they're getting incredibly upset now that Musk has brought on board this incredibly young team.
I know.
For Doge. And the youngest of them is 19 years old. And people are saying, what does a 19-year-old know about fixing the world? But hang on a second. Yeah. You were the guys who actually put Saint Greta up on a pedestal.
Right. Here's something interesting. Jacinda just won an award for some documentary about how wonderful she is. I'm moving to the UAE in a couple of months. Good riddance. That's from Raven. Okay, well. Oh, wow. Look. Top left, okay? She looks sweet.
Yep.
Top right, she's kind of hot. And then it's just like, as soon as the leftism sits in, it just turns you into an absolute harridan. And look at the bottom there. It's like a Lord of the Rings character. And I know she's in New Zealand, so that's not fair to say, but my God, orcs are a real thing, eh?
Reminds me of Yoda. Fear leads to anger.
Anger leads to hate. Hate leads to suffering. All right. So, I mean, are you very vocal and busy on social media? Because I often find myself kind of reposting stuff of yours, but I don't think you're on all the time.
No, I'm there frequently.
What are your rhythms?
I don't actually have any rhythms. It's normally in between doing stuff that. So I'll take a break from coding, for example, and spend probably about a half hour on social media, and then get back into doing other stuff. I'm far more likely to be spending time listening to podcasts, and I've no doubt that you're probably doing.
I do, and
doing
this
the
is a
same
good
thing.
point, good place rather for us to promote your podcast. So, Kanthan does a fantastic podcast that I've been listening to. I haven't missed an episode yet. It's called the Overton Pod, and it's available where you get all your good podcasts, and it's worth a listen. You do it with Jonathan Witt,
yeah,
which is great. And you guys talk about all of the international affairs that you never have a chance to discuss anywhere else, and you get quite involved in all of these different things. I remember there was one episode where you were busy talking about politics, and then suddenly the tone changed and it became about cars for about half an hour.
Yeah, we pretty much freestyle it, much like the conversation you and I are having right now, because entirely unscripted.
You take it anywhere you want to.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing in terms of conversations with Jonathan is that on some topics we really fundamentally disagree. And that actually makes for a great dynamic because...
I don't understand the people who think that we all need to believe the same things and agree on everything in order to be friends. I can imagine nothing more boring. You and I happen to agree on a lot of things, but if we dig deep enough, we'll find stuff that we disagree on.
Mm-hmm.
Why is it? And it's kind of a more South African thing than anything else, is that we're incapable of seeing an argument as being a positive thing. I do. I love an argument. It's like that Monty Python sketch, a good argument. Have you come here for an argument? No, I haven't. Yes, you have. I love an argument. It's the most engaging conversation you can have with somebody. So why wouldn't you want to argue occasionally with your friends? And yes, it can get heated and it can get passionate, but that doesn't mean you hate each other.
Well, my closest friend, actually, you'll be meeting him next week because we've set up that that breakfast thing. But that's what we do. He and I
argue
constantly, and it freaks out the rest of my family occasionally because it gets incredibly...
You start shouting, right?
Yeah, it gets incredibly heated. But the fact of the matter is that, like I said, he's my closest friend, and we really value each other's opinions. It makes us smarter people, Gareth.
Well, Mo Rabbit says the Overton Pod is great. It's informative and entertaining. I want Kanthan and Witt to differ. More views, more insight. Well, that's the point, right? And you sometimes come with a very left field take on what's going on in, the relationship between, say, China and America, or between India and South Africa. I saw Modi was at a conference yesterday with J.D. Vance.
Oh, yeah? Okay.
And they were talking about AI. And you just mentioned coding. Tabo wants to know, what do you code, Kanthan, in the comments?
Oh, lots of stuff. There are just too many things that I can kind of go into right now.
Because you studied this stuff early on in America.
I didn't study this stuff. That's the interesting thing.
You taught yourself?
Yeah. So I majored in politics. They don't call it political science at Princeton because it's not a science, guys. Can we just be clear about this? No. And so, but one of the things that we needed to do, if you were there on a scholarship, is that they'll take care of your fees, but you still need to work in order to pay for things. So you need to work in order to pay for food. You need to work in order to pay for your textbooks.
Right.
And I ended up working at the computer center and ended up being good at particular bits of technology at the time. But you and I have spoken about this. So we went through into the beautiful mind thing on the profile interview you did with me.
That's right. Because you met the guy.
Yeah.
Who they based the movie on.
Yes.
The Russell Crowe Beautiful Mind movie. I remember that.
Exactly.
So I think that people are intimidated by this AI stuff, but it doesn't have to be. I was messing around the other night, just getting it to draw on. My favorite thing that AI can do is to take a huge amount of information and make a very succinct sort of paragraph or two out of the entire corpus of, say, human history. And you get tremendous insight that way because it has to, and only a machine can do this. The human brain is going to be subjective. It can take 1,000 years of history and tell you, for example, what the 10 most important advances in human thought might be, or an invention, or in whatever else. The kind of stuff that made Yuval Noah Harari famous, to be fair. He was very good at, he was like a human form of that kind of condensatory AI. And I find that stuff fascinating. I also like when AI is able to generate images for you now. So you could take, for example, a face of the faces of two different people and ask it to amalgamate them into one new person. And depending on which, AI engine you're using, you can actually see some very interesting you pick out characteristics, or you can make dead people come to life from a...
Well, William Shatner retweeted a picture someone had generated of an AI-produced version of Captain Kirk as a woman.
That kind of thing.
Yeah, and it's just kind of fun to be able to do that. Here's an interesting thing, by the way, that I've been thinking about around exactly the advances that you're talking about, because we're at the point now where you'll be able to give AI a picture and then get it to fully animate a character, and then you can give AI that voice, and it's going to be able to generate the script.
Well, especially for people like us who've done podcasts, because there's so much material for it to work with, it won't get anything wrong.
Yeah. But
it may even make us sound a whole lot better. It may make less mistakes. We might even sound smarter.
We might, but I don't think people will actually buy it, because there's too many ums and ahs in what I say. For example, you don't do that because
I do.
You've been doing this on a professional basis for a hell of a long time. But my point is that if you consider stuff that we were really fond of, that then got messed up in reworking, and let's use Star Wars as a very classic example.
Oh yeah, okay. I fell out of love with Star Wars completely. I used to be the biggest fan.
But we're almost at the stage now where we'll be able to script our own Star Wars universe stories using AI,
and it can do it. Have you seen these guys who do make their own video?
Yeah,
I mean, there's one dude who, using primarily, obviously he's got an incredible graphics engine in his machine, but he used bits and pieces of actual stuff from the movies, but very little of that. Most of it was generated by him. And I'll tell you what, it's better than anything that they had in the actual movies. And it took him months, but he's such a fan. And it's way better. The story's better. It's short. It's only about a 15-minute thing. But it's interesting that there was a piece that I posted, I think it was on Instagram and on Twitter the other day, about how the whole zeitgeist has changed now. And there's this feeling of like, it's almost a revival of that 80s energy.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I've been feeling that.
So you can even see it in movies and TV series. I've been watching this series. Don't want to bore the audience with this again, but I watched, someone here in the office said to me, you have to watch Paradise, which is this show. I'm 4 episodes deep now. It's about these, it's essentially an American political drama, but with, CSI parts to it, and those big reveals, aka, Lost and The Dome and that sort of stuff. So it's a big thriller, and there's so many moving parts to it, but all of the music is from the 80s. And I thought, this is again just building this idea that this guy, I should have given you the clip, James, but essentially this guy argues that we're now entering a place where celebrities don't matter, where governments are discredited, where people just don't believe anything that they're spoon-fed. The education system's let us down. People are rebelling. They like the rebels. They like the rule breakers. They're not interested in complying and following. I wonder if the people who put us through what we went through in the early 2020s, I wonder if they could have looked forward and seen what it's resulted in for them. A total discrediting of all the systems that they'd spent decades building. I wonder if they would have maybe changed tack. I think they would have. I
think that the sheer hubris just kind of completely overtook them, and they really thought that they were invincible. And the worst possible thing that they could have done and it turned out to be the best for the rest of the world, was to steal the election in 2020 from Trump. And if they had just let him have his second
It
term,
would have gone away.
it would have gone away. He would have
Huh.
continued on the same tack. He never would have discovered the stuff that was going on in terms of all of these programs that have been funding these nefarious things around various parts of the world. He would have finished his presidential term, and we would now be probably looking at, well, Vance would never have been.
No,
It probably would have been President Mike Pence at this point.
or it would have gone back to the Dems.
Or it would have gone back to the Dems.
Because they wouldn't have gone so batshit crazy.
Yeah.
Look, and that would. Why do people want to know? And I hate having to refer again and again to obvious things, but let's just get this out of the way. Why are people like you and I so interested in what goes on in America? And I mean, I just brought up this JD Vance Modi thing that was at a conference that was held in France, and it was about technology and about AI and how it's going to affect in principle government, but everything else as well. Now, if I weren't paying attention to JD Vance, I wouldn't have known about this conference, because God alone knows I don't follow what Macron is up to. Who would? Some people like Candace Owens are more interested in whether his wife is a man or not. But why do we care about America, Kanthan? Why do we end up talking about this all the time? It's not because we're bored.
So Economics 101, my macroeconomics professor back in the day, introduced me to that saying that when America sneezes, the rest of the world catches a cold.
Yeah.
And that's exactly the reason why. Because you literally have the largest economy on the planet that controls the global financial system, and literally has the ability to cut people off completely from any role that they can play in the world. And so you actually recognize this is an imperial power that actually affects all of us on a day-to-day basis.
Do you think that this is the most power that a president has exercised? I mean, I think he's 18 days in at this point. That any president has exercised in history?
I think he's certainly pushing the boundaries in terms of what's possible. The interesting thing in terms of the American context is that you still have those checks and balances in place.
Sure.
So yeah, you can put in place an executive order that says,
you remember paper straws, for example.
Yeah, you remember that that story from his first terms, when there was Trump saying, "I'm going to kill 600 million Muslims and one blonde."
Oh,
and it was, why do you want to kill one blonde? And he says, "See, no one cares about the 600 million Muslims."
Did he actually say that?
No, it was a joke at the time, Gareth. We're going to get fact checked.
No, but you know what's going to happen? Yeah. Someone's going to say, "You see, he is a Nazi. I told you. I told you he's a Nazi."
Yeah, but
but get to the window seat, guys.
Yeah, but remember that what we're going to be able to do is, if you don't like something that Trump is doing, Congress can actually turn around and say, "Actually, we're passing a law."
And the courts, which are. I mean, there are a bunch of left-wing, politically motivated judges that are taking him on individual executive orders. But there is a check and a balance. It's not a dictatorship.
Yes.
And let's see what happens.
As opposed to, Xi Jinping pretty much has the ability to do whatever he wants.
I just think it's so great that there are those 4 turbo nerds who were in the basement of the Treasury building.
Yes.
Who just got access to the entire system. I drove past the USAID offices in Pretoria yesterday. Shut down.
Cool.
Bolted. There's no one there. Not a car in the parking lot.
And I wonder how many of our media outlets out here were recipients of that largesse. I can't wait for that data to come out.
I think that'll be fascinating.
I think we're going to find that, certainly in terms of the health sector in our country, just the NGO sector as a whole, are we suddenly going to have the scenario where we're not going to have these NGOs now launching court cases to prevent us evicting people from abandoned buildings?
Yeah, I think that's going to
happen. I mean, the guys who've been funding the legal defense for the Zamazamas.
They're not going to get their free government money from US taxpayers anymore. All right, let's talk to Ramesh Jinarain, who is the Chief Sales and Marketing Officer for Sunlife Hotel Management. We actually gave you a little intro, Ramesh, before you even came on the show, because I was looking at the portfolio for Sunlife. Over 13 years of experience in the hospitality and travel industry. This is you now, obviously. Today, in addition to managing World Leisure Holidays remotely, he oversees global sales, the central reservation office, and marketing, as well as digital marketing in Sun Life, driving strategic growth and innovation. I've actually been to one of your hotels. I was telling Kanthan, I've been to La Pirogue.
Oh, great. Morning, Gareth,
Morning.
and morning, Kanthan.
Nice to see you.
La Pirogue is an iconic property. I'm glad that you've seen the icon of Mauritius. It's one of the pioneering hotels there. We've got 4 of them on the island under the Sunlife umbrella. Sunlife because the hotels are on the 2 coastline, the Sunrise and Sunset Coast. And, magnificent properties, 2 5-star and 2 4-star properties.
Well, I mean, we've had a lot of conversations about sunrises this morning already. This is an interesting thing. I don't know if many people in South Africa are familiar with Sunlife as a hotel group. So just tell me what the origins are and how long you guys have been going, all the rest of it.
I think the origins, if you go back in the day, stems from Southern Sun, Sun International days, Saul Kersner. Those are the brands. Then the unbundling happened in the late 90s, where it split off into Sun International and Sun Resorts at the time. And then, tracking down the line, we 2 years ago, rather, rebranded it Sun Life. And reason is we kept the heritage of Sun Resorts in the form of sun, the energy, and infused it with life. Life being experiences that we've introduced for guests in our hotels, because like I always say, we don't sell to clients a 7-night hotel room. We sell them a 7-night experience that's supposed to end off with a halo effect that carries it through years, and conversations around dinner table stems around these experiences, not necessarily just a hotel room, a swimming pool, or restaurant.
Yeah, but I mean, listen, Mauritius is so beautiful, and people love going to these tropical islands because it's unlike anything else. And South Africans, we've had this discussion on this show in this feature before about how popular it is as a tourist destination for South Africans. So obviously, you guys have got lots of bookings from here. Do you get primarily your clients from South Africa, or are there other places that compete with us for bookings?
Look, the major markets still remain Europe, UK, France, Germany. Those are the primary markets. But South Africa, from a proximity perspective, with 3.5, 4-hour flight, sees quite a lot. It features as 3rd or 4th on the list of arrivals into Mauritius. So very popular destination for South Africans, definitely. Obviously, the ease of travel, the air access, visa-free.
What's the how long's the flight?
It depends. If you are flying into Mauritius, it's 3.5 hours with a tailwind, and then back to South Africa is 4 hours. So give or take.
Still, it's not bad. I mean, that's quick for a tropical island. Now, what are the things that people want when they go on a holiday like this, a getaway like this? Some of them want golf. I can't imagine why you'd want to play a game like that in the humidity when you could be on the beach and in the water. But, I'm not a golfer. So people like golf. What else do they like? They like the restaurants. They like the spas. Are those the big ticket items?
Yeah, they are generally, if I could call it your standard norm ticket items. But then they also look at the island for cultural immersion. Remember, the island is a volcanic island. There's no indigenous people per se. It's got an influence of Chinese, Indian, African that brings out flavors, different cultural experiences. So different festivals that we celebrate on the island, which are great. And that's if I could call it, culture seekers look for that element in it. And then there is obviously the hustle and bustle of the local life in the form of visiting the markets, that we've seen very popular. And then the wild south of the island, which, you've got the contrast of the turquoise waters that ladens the island with the waterfalls and the greenery of the south. So that's often what clients look for, in addition to obviously what the resorts have to offer.
Well, I'm not going to by any means impress you that I'm some sort of cultural junkie, but I did go to the Pamplemousse Botanical Gardens, right, which is pretty impressive. I mentioned to Kanthan, whose grandmother is from Mauritius.
Indeed.
Yeah, that we when you land there, you go to Sir Siwusego Ramgulam Airport, right?
Siwusego Ramgulam. So the iconic, the person that gained Mauritius its independence. And
that's right.
Interestingly enough, his son has recently taken over the new government, and
Oh,
they've had a
wow.
landslide victory.
Dynastic
Yeah.
politics,
So,
eh?
yeah,
Unbelievable.
So,
how often do you go there?
So I am based in Mauritius. Post-COVID, I've
Oh.
based myself there, managing World Leisure remotely in South Africa. But I've been brought up in South Africa. I lived my life here, 32 years. Born in Mauritius, but spent 32 years in Johannesburg and relocated with my family just post-COVID.
Nice. Okay, that's very good. Tell us what your favorite thing is about Mauritius.
Mauritius, I think it gives me, a blend of from culinary experience. I enjoy food, so I'm a foodie. I love that. So Mauritius offers that flavor in it. I enjoy hiking mountains as well, or hiking mountains and trails. And there's beautiful mountains to hike, different intensity levels, if I could call it. So I'm enjoying that at the moment. And obviously the sea. No one can escape from that.
Oh, it's beautiful. And what's your favorite place in Mauritius? And you don't have to just include your 4 hotels, but you probably will.
It depends. It depends. If it depends with the crowd I'm with. If I've got friends that are looking for a beautiful sunset with great cocktails, I always enjoy lounging at the Buddha Bar Beach at Sugar Beach. Enjoying the cocktails and the Asian fusion cuisine that it offers. If I've got my little one who doesn't sleep, he gets up early in the morning, then I tend to head to the East Coast and look at the magical sunrise, out of the Indian Ocean. That's always his enjoyment, so I enjoy that with him. And then the north of the island's got a public beach called Peribere, which is literally a swimming pool in the sea. So I enjoy that as well. So it depends on what I'm in for, what mood I'm in on that particular day.
What is your favorite cocktail, by the way?
That's important.
There's a signature cocktail made at Sugar Beach. So it's one that I've not seen anywhere else. It's literally a dome that's how can I say, a smoke dome that's created, and it's called Make a Wish. So the aim of it is to pop it with your nose and make your wish. And I enjoy that. It's always
that's cool.
Instagrammable, photogenic type of cocktail, but tastes great as well.
People love that. Okay, so what's the best time of year to go, or is all year good? Because we've been over this a couple of times on the show. I still don't have a definitive answer on like what the best time is to go to Mauritius.
So for me, when I look at the island, you split it into obviously quarters, first quarter, second quarter, third quarter, and fourth quarter of the year in terms of months. But it's literally got only 2 seasons. It's long summer, so it's got a 10-month summer and a mild winter. So it depends. My favorite time stems from around October to April in the year, and avoiding the slightly cooler month because obviously I've become an island boy. So, I've become a bit sensitive to temperature changes, let's put it that way. But I enjoy that element. But when I was in South Africa or living in the UK, I enjoyed it all year round. I was swimming in July in the middle of winter. It was fine. The temperature was a mild 22, 23 degrees. So it was good.
It's lovely. It's just never horrible there.
Yeah.
How much? Because you live there, I can ask you, like, how much traffic is there between Mauritius and Reunion?
There's quite a few. I think I was in Reunion last week with the family, and if I look at the flight schedule, there's literally about 5 flights a day between Mauritius to Reunion on a mixture of Air Mauritius and Air Austral. And remember, it's only a 30-minute flight. Often you sit longer in immigration than the flight itself.
That's amazing because they're fairly close together, right? But the one is completely different to the other.
Yeah, no, Reunion is a volcanic island, very adventure driven. So it's not, if you look at Mauritius, as soon as you talk to someone and you just say Mauritius as a brand, it conjures up images of turquoise water, lagoons, fill out with trees, palm trees, and relaxation comes to mind. When you look at Reunion, it gives you the contrast. It's more adventure, trails, mountains. It's kind of the terrain's very mountainous. It's great to do a helicopter flip in Reunion. That's what we did last week with my family. And the volcano is a different site. It's completely different.
So Shea Rubin is a must when you go to Mauritius, says Janine. And Raven says Le Morne is great surf if you want to go surfing.
Yeah. Le Morne has the winds of the south, so it's great for surfing and kite surfing rather.
Yeah.
That's the famous spot on Le Morne side. And then Sheikh Ruben, yeah, there's a number of iconic restaurants, in Mauritius, depending on what you fancy, what you favor, it's there. At Sugar Beach, for example, Mare Mare has been a new pop-up concept that's been introduced, and it's by Chef Ruben Rufel, who's introduced it in December. And he's, curated his own menu, which is going to change every season with local produce. And then he's brought the wines from South Africa, which always goes great with any local cuisine that you put up.
I love it. Okay, well, listen, I'm very glad that we got to speak to you this morning. Just in case anybody wants to know, those 4 properties are Sugar Beach, Long Beach, La Pirogue, and Ambre. And you can find out more. They've got a site. You can see yoursunlife.com for more info. And I appreciate your time this morning. It's great to talk to you and meet you.
Likewise, Gareth. And just in closing, those 4 properties are sold through World Leisure Holidays. So anyone that walks into a travel agent can ask for those products, and it will be bought through World Leisure, who's our in-house tour operator in South Africa.
Excellent.
Owned by Sunlife. Yep.
There we go. So that is Ramesh, and it's very good to speak to you this morning, Ramesh. Appreciate your time.
Thanks, Gareth. Have a good one.
Good stuff. We thought he was in Durban, but he's actually in Mauritius.
They look the same, don't they? Yep.
Yeah, it's very, very good. By the way, if you want to find out more, go to travel.co.za to make your dream holiday a reality. It's 7 o'clock. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Kanthan's here, and we've got Grammy Award-winning Wouter Kellerman, who's just won another set of Grammys. I say set because this is his 3rd at the 67th Annual Grammy Awards. He's got a new album out. He also did some collaborations with Zakes Bantwini, which deserves some honorable mentions. And just to make things a little bit more interesting, he's also done some interesting stuff in university, which you're not going to expect to hear from someone who is a world-renowned flautist and Grammy Award winner.
Is he going to give us a live performance?
I don't know about that. We'll have to see. But he's definitely bringing the Grammys. Cool. So you'll get to see those. Stick around.
The answer to masculinity is not making it more feminine. Like, if I'm in a room with 5 women, I don't give a how independent those 5 women are. But if a man walks into that room with a knife, those 5 women will look at me to protect them.
Yeah.
Yep. Right?
Absolutely.
Now, the world cannot be selective when they need men, right? It's been very fashionable for the last 6 years to bash man and call us trash. But when we have to go to war, we're the first people they look at. When it comes to a fight or to protect you in that moment, they will look at us. So for me, masculinity is a beautiful thing. The world needs masculinity. Making us more feminine is not the answer to masculinity. Does masculinity have a problem? Yes, we do. Do we have toxicities? Yes, we do. But do not think for one moment that the world can keep on going without masculinity. Because that's funny as
Now, we started 2025 telling you that we like cricket again. Tom, how's it?
I'm well. Thanks for that lovely introduction. Do you think there's too much cricket currently being played because you've got SA20 and then players ultimately going into the IPL and then going into, Champions Trophy and then going into...
It's a question from ChatGPT.
No, it's not. It's literally what we've been discussing for 4 weeks.
So the guys in the English kind of realms go a bit heavier than the SA guys?
If you win, cheapers, there's no going on before midnight.
Tom, I mean, when Man United lose, are you like, or does it actually hurt you? Like, how big of a fan?
This is a terrible analysis. You don't have to answer the question, Tom.
All right, it's Wednesday morning and we are here live and hopefully ready to take you into a very, very exciting Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. Before you know it, the weekend's here again. And we've got all these dumb public holidays this year. Like in April, it's just a complete write-off. Basically, I think, and everybody here is already putting in leave because they know if you take off 4 days or 7 days, you get like 18 days. So it's ludicrous. This country, we don't like to work.
Gareth, if there's a measure of success in life, and, you know, I just want to put this out there, and I was having this conversation with a friend a couple of weeks ago. I think I've gone through my entire life without ever needing to fill out a leave form.
There we go.
And if there's anything that's a flex, it's just that whole idea that you're pretty much the boss of your own time. But by the same token, when there's a public holiday that comes around, well, actually, that doesn't really mean much because
you and also the holidays that people take in December, for example, if you actually run your own business, that's the worst time. You have to pay people before your month is over.
Yep.
You sometimes have to pay them a bonus if that is part of the system, or if the company's done well, that's what you like to do. And then you suddenly find you're paying them again, and you hadn't had them there for half the month, right?
Yep.
It's ridiculous. Anyway, I mean, look, South Africans, let's just face it, we're not as bad as France, but we're getting there.
True.
The French are terrible when it comes to this stuff. I think they have the most public holidays in the world, or somewhere up
But
there.
also, there's a complete absence of a work ethic. The one thing you could say about South Africans is that, by and large, we've got a pretty good work ethic.
I think we work hard.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we know what we're doing. So I'm excited because the guy who we're going to have in just now, and he's just going to come and hang with us. It's not so much of an interview as it is a chance to just congratulate him on doing cool stuff. And we do have a lot of South Africans who are making waves everywhere. And this guy is just terrific. So Wouter Kellerman has been on the show before, and we've spoken to him. He's a flautist, so he plays the flute. He's a producer and a composer. He just won his 3rd Grammy Award. And he has 5 nominations to his name, by the way. So this guy's no slouch. He's not taking time off.
Well, I hope he's brought it in, like you said, because I've never actually, I've held an Oscar, but I've never held.
Never held a Grammy?
I've never held a Grammy, yeah.
Well,
so
maybe he'll
be
let
a good
you.
one.
We'll see how it goes. I'll see him in a second or two. All right, we've got so many other things that we also have to get to. So a little bit of news before we bring Wouter on quickly. There's a guy who, I think you might have heard this story, and I know you're a big fan of crypto, but a guy lost a 600 million pound Bitcoin fortune because you remember his wife, I think it was, threw a hard drive into the rubbish, which had Bitcoin worth $600 million or million pounds in this case. So a judge recently dismissed his bid to search the landfill where it could be, or to receive compensation. So he's actually thinking now of buying the landfill. It's worth it.
Except he can't really buy the landfill without having that 600 million pound Bitcoin stash, right?
Yeah,
so,
because
so
without
how's he
the
going to
money.
do this? Yeah.
I don't know.
So
maybe
you need someone who's actually going to say, yeah, I'm willing to bankroll you on the off chance that you can actually recover this. But seriously, guys, why are you not keeping your keys on a separate hardware wallet that you're actually duplicating and locking in
I
multiple
bought one
places?
today. I bought one, not today, but in the last week or two, because Bitcoin But, who listens to us and actually brought us some bread, he bakes bread as well.
Oh,
Talk
yeah?
about people being industrious. He said to me, you've got to keep your Bitcoin on your own hardware wallet.
Yep.
And you've got to lock that in the safe, right? Like you would anything else. And I bought one this week. I don't know how to use it yet. I'm going to be shown how. But that's the way to store your money.
Well, pro tip, by the way.
Yeah.
You should actually also burn it onto an optical drive.
Oh, okay.
And the reason for that.
What just explain why.
So an optical drive is basically a CD. So let's say we get into a nuclear war.
Okay.
All right. When you have a nuclear war, you have an electromagnetic pulse.
Right.
An electromagnetic pulse will actually
fry any piece of electronic equipment.
it'll wipe out data. Yeah. So, but CDs are immune to that.
Oh, so you want to burn a CD? Literally burn a DVD?
Yeah, burn your keys onto a CD. Yeah. Yeah.
It will survive. We'd moved on from CDs.
It will survive a nuclear strike. Yeah.
Okay, so that's how you store. You get a double.
No. I'm just saying that I don't have enough Bitcoin to justify that kind of stuff. And frankly, if we get hit by a nuke, I think there'd be other things.
I think we've got bigger priorities. Yeah, we've definitely got more to worry about than that. Although, again, we're in this interesting place, and this is why we don't want too much attention from anyone, including the United States, where nobody really cares what happens in South Africa. We could do our own thing. And in that way, we're very, very lucky. We've just got to keep our heads down and just make the best we can of this country and ourselves.
And pro tip, guys, just stop sending money to Hamas.
Stop sending money to Hamas. Yeah, that would be a good idea. Right. Yeah. I couldn't agree more. So speaking of which, apparently, and Kanthan and I got into a conversation about this too the other day, the US have issued a record number of visas to South Africans in the year 2023, apparently. 15,159 H-2A visas were issued to South Africans, reflecting a growing role in American agriculture.
Oh, yeah, those are the H2, which are the short-term worker visas.
Right, so these are South Africans who go out there, drive tractors, plant things. It's hard work, and I know people who've done it. Get over there, and there are job opportunities, but it's not glamorous work by any means. It's tough work, but with what has been said in the last couple of weeks, there may be more of that opening up.
I don't know what's glamorous work, though. Well,
no, nothing's glamorous work. Let's be fair.
Yeah, although the kind of stuff that Wouter does is probably glamorous.
I think there's a lot of hard work that goes in behind the scenes we don't see. We'll ask him about it just now. So Donald Trump has obviously said that he's going to resettle certain groups of South Africans as refugees, and the order has sparked legal action in South Africa and the fears of a mass exodus of farmers, potentially destabilizing the country's agricultural sector. In response, President Ramaphosa is sending a delegation to Washington for diplomatic talks, while business leaders seek to mitigate economic fallout. What do you make of that?
I find it interesting that he's, on the one hand, he's going cap in hand to say, yeah, boss, and on the other hand, you have these fiery statements that get issued by the ANC that say, we shall not be moved.
Yeah. Or just go. It's amazing also how many people suddenly the mask is off and they just allow themselves to be blatantly racist.
Yep.
Right? It's like it doesn't take much.
No.
You just prod it with a stick and then suddenly the ugliness is revealed. Okay, so here's an interesting thing, and this I needed Kanthan in here to discuss with me. A 19th century book by Ingersoll Lockwood. Have you heard about this? Featuring a protagonist called Baron Trump. Has gone viral on TikTok. Okay. With users speculating it predicted Donald Trump's rise to power. One novel, which is called The Last President, describes a contentious election, protests on Fifth Avenue, and a president appointing a cabinet member named Pence. All of this written in a book in the 1800s, okay? Fueling wild conspiracy theories now. Some events in the book link to Trump's late uncle and Nikola Tesla's alleged time travel experiments. While many find the parallels uncanny, skeptics dismiss them as mere coincidences rather than evidence of prophecy. But it is kind of weird.
It's fun. Come on. We can speculate about this kind of stuff. The interesting thing is that there was lots of the early stuff that was developed by Tesla that ended up being classified. And the interesting thing will be what happens if Musk now turns around and says...
Who owns those patents and those ideas?
Well, it's not a question of owning the patents because, it's obviously out of patent because patents only last for 20 years.
Who would have access to those experiments and conclusions?
Who knows where they've actually ended up classifying these things and where they end up locking it down?
You mean the government might have classified
Yeah,
them?
that's pretty much what happens. So, very good example in... the year that I got to university, guy that was graduating in that year, his senior thesis was how to build a nuclear weapon with readily available components. And, obviously graduated cum laude, but his thesis was promptly classified.
Of course, and it's not the kind of thing that you want getting out there.
Sure, but, just take the view that if you have one high school a kid who goes to university and is smart enough to be able to
build a fission device.
Yeah, but more importantly, work out how to build a fission device with readily available components, which is the point. What
do you think of these portable fusion reactors they're talking about?
No, that's not going to be coming up for a long time.
That would be a hell of a thing, right? Look, because once we've got abundant energy,
well, that's the holy grail that people have been pushing for. But fusion is incredibly difficult to control, and people just don't get this.
And we'll have some mistakes, Kanthan, but
it's pretty much an H bomb. You can't control an H bomb with fission reactors. You can pull out the rods to slow the pace. But fusion, I mean, the sun is basically a large fusion
massive
reactor.
fusion reactor.
And it's basically smashing hydrogen atoms together and producing helium and neutrons and converting it to energy.
It is funny, though, this book. Hamin says, this is insane. Also, that book about Elon leading a colony on Mars. Yeah, the first president of Mars called Elon. Apparently, though, I mean, the simple explanation is that his father read that book and then decided that was what he's going to call his son. And I think that's more or less been revealed as the true story behind all of this. So it's not entirely by chance, and that the book, retrospectively.
Well, the other interesting thing, of course, is that lots of people are referring to Baron Trump as the Lisan Al Gaib.
Oh yeah, from
Dune. Yes, the Kuzat's Haderach.
Okay, people are in love with this guy. By the way, I still want to know what he said to Biden at the inauguration. Everybody wants to know what that was, because it didn't look like it was a friendly exchange.
Well, I doubt Biden remembers.
I don't think Biden knows. That's exactly right. When Nikola Tesla died, Trump's uncle ended up with a lot of the inventions on paper, apparently. That's interesting. What a weird coincidence that Trump's uncle was like working with Nikola Tesla, and now you got Elon and Trump working together. It's bizarre, right? Dirk says, if you look hard enough, you can find connections in most things, but it's always interesting.
I doubt we're ever going to get to a stage where you and I are related, Gareth.
But hey, you never know.
Mhm.
Maybe it's somewhere in the distant past. It's not entirely impossible. Dirk says, fusion is like trying to control the power of the sun in a small building. That's exactly right.
Absolutely
Kanthan
right.
said.
Yep.
Slippery Pickle says, what about the Philadelphia project, Kanthan?
Oh, yeah.
What's that?
This was purportedly the ability to go through a portal that was able to shift you between time zones. And
oh, wow.
Yeah, and there've been a number of movies that have been made about it. Again, it's one of those things where there's lots of stuff where at a theoretical level, the science is actually possible. But the ability to actually bring it to life is, well, that becomes far more complex. So, yeah, I'm not a believer that traveling back in time is actually possible, but certainly
you would
traveling
change
forward.
things if you could, and plus it's already happened, and I don't think time is retrospective.
Well, we already know that it is possible to travel into the future by
that, maybe.
Yes, by just traveling incredibly quickly. But then you've got no way of going back to tell people what you're going to find.
They're not going to believe you anyway. I often think about how weird it would be. And maybe this is just my fantasy, because I love the idea of time travel so much. Imagine being able to go back and be understood, first of all, because they might not sound or look or behave
they'll sound entirely different.
Right.
To the way
and they'd probably think you were crazy and a witch, and they'd burn you. And that would be your adventure. It wouldn't be this thing where you suddenly would become this oracle and people would come to you for advice and you'd help them figure stuff out. I mean, I don't think you'd be very good at doing basic things that they would have done even 500 years ago. How many people know how to skin an animal? Not too many.
Okay.
You do.
I do, yeah. And
well,
I'm pretty sure that
most people don't.
Mm-hmm.
How many people? Okay, let's take a much simpler example. How many people know how to change a tire?
That's actually the means test that I put out for most people.
Change a plug.
Yeah. So my eldest daughter, who's now living in the UK, when she first used to introduce boyfriends, and my first question would be, can you change a tire? And her response would be, well, I can change a tire because you've taught me how to. I said, yeah, but I want to know whether he can change a tire.
Right. He was raised properly or not.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, Slippery Pickle suggests here that Baron Trump said, I think you shat your pants to Joe Biden. Dirk says, need to pay me a lot of money up front to be the first human to try out a teleportation machine. What about traveling to another parallel universe, says Raven. I could change a tire, a tap, an entire electric system, says somebody else. And which time in history would you go back to if you could time travel? Oh, I love this game. See, I could play this all day. There's so many places I'd like to go to. But I think the most interesting time, just because of the effect that it's had on, 2,000 years of history since, is probably just to see whether this Jesus guy was all he was cracked up to be in his own time. I think he'd be the most interesting person to watch just for a little bit. And there's a whole lot of information we don't know about that period when, he was born and then later on when he comes back. Where was he in between? What, just fixing up shit in Joseph's carpentry shop?
You see, I'm one of those people who would never want to travel back in time. I don't want to go forward.
I love it.
I'd want to go into the future. I mean,
can
you imagine
wouldn't want to be there when
time? Okay, I'm not going to have access to Parma ham. I'm not going to have access to Parmesan cheese. Okay, extra virgin olive oil. Okay, and a nice cab sauv to go with it. I mean, come on.
Yeah, okay, you're making us all hungry.
Uh-huh.
All right, let's bring this man on. It's very, very cool to have somebody he's literally, the Grammys were just a couple of days ago. So it's not even a long time since he won his 3rd Grammy Award. He's a flautist, producer, and composer well known to South Africans as Wouter Kellerman, and it's exciting to have him here. What can I say? The 67th annual Grammy Awards. His album, Treveni, which took home the honor in the best category of New Age Ambient Chant album. And he's here this morning. There he is at the, look at that. Isn't that great? At the Grammys. How awesome is that? Hey, Wouter. Nice to see you, man.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you?
Excellent, thank you.
Very good. Very, very good. So how are the Grammys? Is it becoming old hat for you now?
Yeah, it's so, it's just every day. I win a Grammy. It's like the 3rd time. I think I'm looking for something new.
Yeah. Isn't there some intergalactic prize we can go for now?
Yeah, I don't want to move back in time to my first Grammy. Definitely not.
There's always the Olympics, right? I mean, you could go for that. You can.
I've actually considered that because I used to be a top league table tennis player.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
I used to be UJ's #1 table tennis player.
That's pretty good.
And I was thinking that's the only way I can get to the Olympics, but South Africa doesn't send any table tennis players.
I'll get my servant James to just bring the awards on here. Yes, no, put them on that table in the middle there. That's a good place to show them off. Look at those, Kanthan. Now you can touch.
I've got to touch one of these.
Yeah. So that's fantastic. So where do you put them? Where do you put them in your house?
They used to live in a box until last year. I just never got it together.
Oh, that's terrible, man.
I know.
These are Grammys. They're not like some crappy award like I used to have from You Magazine. These are the real thing.
I'd carry it around in my backpack and just, pull it out as a flex.
You'd have it mounted on your head permanently.
I had a friend who had a nomination. You get these medallions.
Yes.
And he used to walk around with his medallion everywhere, like night and day, So, but yeah, these are just, it doesn't get boring. I'm as excited. I'm so excited this year because it's like having your child do well at, excel at something because it's music that you kind of give birth to, and to see it actually go somewhere.
Now, do you go to the whole ceremony, or is there that, because there's a before, there's an after, then they do the one that we all see on TV. Yeah, sometimes they leave categories like yours out of. So how does it work?
Yeah, there's the premiere ceremony, which is in the afternoon, which in my view is the most important ceremony because that's where the more in-depth categories, like all the classical, all the jazz, all the
but the ones that most peasants don't give a shit about.
Yeah, right? That's right.
Okay, all right, I'm with you.
And then so that's in the afternoon, and then in the evening there's the the more popular, the pop and the
that's the stuff the stuff they show on TV.
That's the stuff, yeah. But in the afternoon, it's a beautiful event with also lots of incredibly more sophisticated performances, the more interesting, like jazz artists or classical musicians or folk. Bella Fleck performed, for example. And so it's a beautiful moment.
When you've been as often as you have, and you have how many nominations as well as these 3 wins? It's like
five nominations.
So I mean, people are like, oh, there's voted every year. It's almost like a fixture, right? But are there people you see regularly there?
Yeah, we
besides Beyonce doesn't count. I mean, like 33.
Yeah, that's ridiculous. Yeah, but come on,
yeah.
You can't tell me she is the greatest musician of all time ever just because she's got more Grammys than anybody else.
No, absolutely not.
No.
I mean, just contrast with the Beatles, for
No,
example.
come on.
Mm.
And I don't think she's written any of those songs, has she? I don't know. But I mean, the guys that you're competing with in the more classical stuff, the jazz stuff,
Yeah.
I mean, they're the ones who also are taken more seriously by actual musicians, right?
Yeah. We see everybody every year, and we go for Grammy Week, and there's a lot of events, a lot of Grammy events, and we actually hosted our own event this year, a post-Grammy brunch, and we invited everybody. I think we had about 350 people coming to our event.
When you say we, who's this?
Well, in this case, because this album is a collaboration between myself and the
Zakes.
Indian singer Chandrika Tandon.
Oh, okay, yes.
Yeah, and the Japanese cellist Eru Matsumoto. So the three of us hosted,
cool.
And we had Indian and Japanese food and South African wine at the event.
Fantastic. So how do you know who to invite to these things?
Well, we invite all the other musicians. There's a lot of musicians who go, and in the Grammy process, there are 13,000 Grammy voting members. So these are all creatives. They're artists or engineers or producers, and so you voted by your peers. And these are mostly in the US, but also some are overseas. And every year there's 20,000 or more than 20,000 entries. So the most important thing is to create beautiful music, but then secondly, you also have to make sure your music gets heard, because nobody's going to listen to 20,000 or even 100 albums. So you must make sure that your music is heard. So you promote the album. So and every year there's a lot of musicians that go to the Grammys, and we invite these.
So this is an interesting new collaboration. I mean, you've done some interesting ones before with the Ndlovu Youth Choir and with Zakes Bantwini. And is that important too? Is to kind of stretch yourself and meet other people who are doing amazing things and put stuff together?
Yeah, I love collaborating. Well, first of all, the flute is kind of a collaborative instrument. It works well with singers or other instrumentalists. But secondly, I'm just I've got a very curious mind, and I'm interested in primarily lots of roots influences from all over the world. So I've collaborated with South Africans, but also with a lot of overseas artists. And I think music really crosses borders. It builds bridges. We have this kind of invisible link going thousands of years back. And I found that even with people that, for example, we went to the Rajasthan International Folk Festival, and we were flown there a week before, and we met these artists who had never left their little town.
Yeah.
They're the folk musicians that learned their music from their parents and their parents and their parents. And they didn't speak any English. I didn't speak any of their languages. And we just found common ground so quickly. And that's just a mind-blowing. It's just incredible to see that.
When you say common ground, what you started playing and they started playing.
Yeah. They played something for us. We played something for them.
That's fantastic,
great. Yeah, it was just, and it really works like that. So in this case, it was Indian and Japanese and South African musicians, and it took us a while. It was actually not easy, but we found a sweet spot eventually where we could all love what we're doing.
All right, so I mean, you kind of are like you're turning into our Beyonce, because I think you've got more Grammy awards and nominations than I think anyone else in South Africa. At this point.
I think individual artists, because Ladysmith Black Mambazo has got 5 Grammys, and Soweto Gospel Choir's got 3.
Right, so you're up there.
I've just drawn up.
Who among the musicians are the most impossible to work with? I've heard the harpists are terrible. I heard the harpists are really full of shit, and the woodwind people are, they're not so great. Who do you like? Who do you like the most?
I don't think it depends on the instrument, some people are divas, very famous people can be hard to work with, because they just people who are used to having things their own way.
Do you have to check that you don't become a diva?
Yeah, but if you take a very long time to have success, you've kind of got that built in. I think the divas are often the people who get very quick success, a very young success.
Haven't had to work,
but if
slave.
If you've worked for 20 years, or in my case, I've played the flute every day now for 53 years.
Really? Okay, so tell me, because actually Kanthan and I were saying just now, which job is glamorous? And then we see you up on stage getting a Grammy or whatever. We see you performing. And many people would assume that that's the majority of your time. But you just said now you have to play the flute every day.
Yeah.
How does that work? Do you wake up in the morning and set aside like an hour to play after breakfast? Or how does it actually, is it a discipline?
Yeah, it is. For me, it's a kind of meditation as well. So I kind of need it. Even if nobody ever listened, I'd still do it. And I'd fit it in somewhere in the day. But I have to do it every day. Since I was 10 years old, I've played probably 99% of days. So it's just like brushing your teeth.
Jeez, that's those hours you need to be a master, right? And you definitely are that.
Yeah, it's beyond the 10,000 or 20,000.
Oh, for sure. You must be like up to 50,000 by this stage.
Yeah, I always say I'd be very upset if I wasn't any good by now.
I just wonder what it might be like to be like Wouter's neighbors. I mean, it must be amazing to hear someone who's so profoundly good at this, but also...
quite.
Like there's some days where you just don't feel like the flute. I'm sure there's some days where you don't feel like the flute.
Yeah.
Right?
I don't know what it is, but I always feel like it. But because I don't really, it's just a meditation for me. So even if I play badly, because it happens every second day you play badly.
I can't imagine, but okay.
So, but it's one funny story is my neighbor, because I took 20 years. I was an electronic engineer for 20 years, still playing the flute every day. But before I started my full-time music career, and when I had my first show ever, I invited my neighbor, and he had been listening for 10 years to me practicing every day. And he said, no, he doesn't want to come. I said, why? He says, I'm so sorry, Wouter, but to be honest, I really just don't like your music.
Well, that's honest. Janine, who's on the Recording Academy's, she's one of the members, says the WhatsApp groups are so proud of you. So yeah, I think South Africans, you know what I love about this, and I'm so glad that Tulsi gave me a call yesterday and said, hey, we're in the country and we're around. Can we come and visit? And I was like, of course you can. It's always nice to see you. And really, I think we've seen you after each of your Grammy wins. It's just so nice that there is someone like you who's going out there and just doing things really well. It's that merit stuff and that hard work that we were talking about earlier.
I was thinking about this when Wouter was mentioning just now, the practicing every day. And I saw an interview with Charles Barkley some years ago, basketball player.
Yeah.
And one of the questions that he got asked is it true that every time Tiger Woods is playing that you call him and wish him good luck for the day? And he said, well, yeah, Tiger and I are very good friends, and I always call him, but I don't wish him good luck, because if I was getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning every day and I was knocking golf balls for 5 hours nonstop every day, I'd get lucky too.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think it's the discipline. Yeah,
Gary Player said, the more I practice, the luckier I get.
Yeah.
Is that how you feel? Because certainly, I mean, you spoke about being a normal person and having a normal job. And that's not pejorative. I know that for many people, they've got some hope, some dream, some ambition of doing something truly breakthrough and receiving international acclaim like you have. But you didn't know that you would have this kind of a life when you were an electronic engineer?
Yeah. I had young kids and I had to look after them. I was a single dad, and music, and I couldn't tour. I couldn't be away from home, so music just didn't work, and also didn't bring the kind of money in at the time that I needed. So I basically waited 20 years until my kids grew up, and it was a passion that I really wanted to do. People thought I was having a midlife crisis when I swapped to the flute, abandoning a successful engineering company and following my dreams. And
most people would go, that's exactly the opposite of what you should be doing.
Yeah. People thought I was crazy, but I was, and it was very hard initially. But just a lot of perseverance, I think, is, and a passion, perseverance. That's what got me there in the end.
I think it's beautiful. And as I was saying just a moment ago, it makes us all very, very proud that there's a South African like you doing amazing things all over the world. Now, you've also performed, and this is no small thing, 3 sold-out concerts at Carnegie Hall in New York, which is so prestigious.
Yeah.
I mean, really, that's like, in some ways, the epicenter of music culture in America, and certainly in New York.
Yeah.
I mean, it must feel quite cool to have done 3 sold-out concerts. That's a big deal.
Yeah, that was just mind-blowing, because you just hear about Carnegie Hall and you see
right there
concerts.
on 7th Avenue. I've walked past it, I don't know, 100 times.
Yeah, and just to be there yourself and be backstage, and they've got, all these photographs of people, very famous people who've performed there before. It's just mind-blowing. And the funny story is, we didn't have proper accommodation the first time, and so my band, I took my band there to perform with me, and so I had to give them the good rooms, and then Tulsi and I had to like squash in the other room, and it was very disappointing. So we were exhausted that day when we had to perform. We had no sleep the previous night. We spent up to 3 a.m. still inviting press and reminding people that we're having the show. So it's definitely not as glamorous as it looks.
With playing the flute, are there things that you need specifically to look out for? Like we were talking about Tiger Woods earlier. Obviously, general physical fitness is always a good thing in anything. But do you have to have, I don't know, better lungs than anyone else? You can't smoke.
Yeah, but actually, strangely, some of the very good flute players smoke.
They do?
Yeah.
Okay. Are there other things that you need to worry about? Like obviously your hands have if you get like arthritis or,
there's generally your body is your instrument. So I have to do cross training. I have to do yoga every day because you spend many hours in this position.
Right.
And if you'll just become like this eventually. So you have to open up your chest and cross train. And part of the daily practice is your lungs, practicing your lungs and your capacity of your lungs. But basically you have to be healthy and flexible as well. So those are things that you wouldn't expect to be training as a flutist.
No, it's amazing. I think that it is everything, it's all the different moving parts, the sum of the
your
parts.
wrist, for example, this wrist, many flutists have injury in this wrist, they have to stop playing. So you have to stretch both ways, strengthen.
Because you hold it, just show me how.
I hold it like this.
Like that.
So it presses like this.
And both hands are moving.
Yeah, so there's a lot of pressure on this wrist. If you do it for many hours a day, it's like people typing on a keyboard all day. They get carpal tunnel syndrome.
Well, Kanthan's got that for sure.
Nope, I pretty much do the stuff that Wouter says as well. Yeah, it's the regular swimming sessions and all of that stuff. That's basically flexing it.
I mean, overall, because the music industry has changed so much, right? You can't rely on album sales.
No, that's the whole industry, the streaming, you don't make much.
No, it's ridiculous.
I don't make much money out of. So you make an album and you never make the money back on that album. But how the model works for us is that album gets you out there and then you get booked for live performances, and that's what keeps the wheel
You've got to
turning.
get in front of the people again, like in the old days. Hey, it's amazing. Despite the fact that we live in this internet world and everybody's connected, and you can put something out there and 1 million people see it.
Yeah,
it's still about those people who actually come and pay to be in front of you when you play.
That's kind of what, and in my case, a lot of corporate events and
Sure.
That's what pays the bills.
And
So
and these awards don't they help, right?
they help a lot.
They don't do you any damage there in that respect.
Yeah.
They're like, here he is, Grammy Award winning,
Yeah.
Wouter Kellerman, right?
The first Grammy nomination made a huge difference because up to then you'd apply to play at a festival, for example, and people go, "Oh, middle-aged flute player, white, middle-aged flute player from Africa," you know.
Like we pass on him.
Yeah.
Did you ever go back to those people after the first or the second Grammy and say to them, just by the way, fuck you?
No,
I mean,
I go back to them and says, "Please book me again."
Well, they won't make that mistake again.
Yeah,
Am
but
I
some
right?
of them still haven't booked us. We there's a few nuts we've found
You still
very
gotta
hard
crack.
to crack. They just don't believe a flute can. You know, if you tell the average person in the street saying, you know, do you want to buy an album of flute music? They're just not going to
No.
be
I mean,
excited about
it's
it.
certainly better than the panpipe. But,
but until they've heard what you can do,
sure,
you know, that it, people are, you know, but that's the difference. Now you say Grammy nominated or Grammy winning flutist, and they go, "Oh, let me just listen. What is it?" You know, and then that's helped a lot.
Wouter, you ever tried playing Kirstenbosch?
I would love to. That's one of the hard nuts that we haven't cracked.
yeah, because that's a lovely place to do
It's
anything.
a stunning
to.
place.
Gorgeous and the
Sarah
setting
and I did Yo-Yo Ma.
yeah?
I think
Yeah, he
shortly
played the
before.
Bach. You know, it was solo. Was that the
Yeah.
solo?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I heard that was an incredible concert.
Amazing. Yeah, just mind blowing.
So yeah, and that was solo cello for like.
Mm-hmm. And I think the interesting thing in terms of that Cape Town audience is I think you'd resonate with them.
Yeah, definitely. That would definitely work, but I haven't been able to convince anybody to book me there yet.
Well, I suppose, you know, and the flute there is a South African connection that's stronger than almost anywhere else with the flute. But I think it doesn't always have to be sophisticated uptown people who, you know, look down their glasses at you and have listened to several thousand albums of classical music.
Yeah.
You don't have to be those people to enjoy the flute.
No, and you know, my band, our music's very accessible because there's a lot of roots elements, and my band is amazing. They all sing as well.
Nice.
So there are a lot of vocals in my show, and it's a mixture of different, you know, of completely different music. So it's very interesting. So yeah, shout out to Kirstenbosch. Please ask me to come play there.
Yeah. Come on, stop messing around, guys. Like, get with it. Really, that we have to tell you on the show. Why haven't they invented any new musical instruments for a long time? I mean, the orchestra has been the orchestra for 200 years, maybe even longer.
Yeah, there are electronic instruments, but you know, the timeless. A lot of the composers, of the new composers, actually stay away from using these brand new sounds because those sounds age. They come in and out of fashion. So now if you listen to like a film score from 10 years ago, if they used the latest electronic sounds then, now you listen back to it and you go, oh, well, that's a bit dated now. But if you use the symphony orchestra,
yeah,
that's kind of timeless.
It is.
Yeah, so I think that's one of the reasons why people don't use a lot of the, you know, more edgy sounds, electronic sounds.
And also some of them have dated very badly, right?
Yeah.
So that when they, you know, we had a lot of that kind of synth sound in the 70s that nobody really wants to hear anymore.
And at the time it was very cool.
Oh, yeah.
But I think we need to have a return to the whole idea of having actual movie themes. Because one of the things, you know, we were talking about movies earlier, and one of the things that really annoyed me about the entire Marvel Cinematic Universe is that you cannot think of a single musical theme from any of them.
No.
And if you
They just use
contrast
other
it
people's
with
music.
what happened in the DC universe, the Batman movies had very distinctive themes. I mean, John Williams' Superman score was just, you know, absolutely iconic. And
anything
and
John
it's
Williams
to you,
does seems to be.
Yeah, it's to your point.
What do you listen
the
to, though?
symphonic stuff.
I mean, when you don't have to be working, because this is work for you.
Yeah.
What are you listening to in your spare time? Is there stuff that or with your friends? Like if you're just having a a Saturday afternoon thing somewhere, and it's just you and your friends, what do you listen to?
I listen to a lot of old music. But for example, Leonard Cohen,
well,
like for the folk music, Nora Jones, her big album "Come Away with Me" is still one of my favorites. And I actually, at the time when I started my musical career, she had that album, and it won 8 Grammys, sold 35 million copies, and I then thought, the guy who mixed it is the world's best engineer. So I reached out to him.
Oh yeah.
Johnny Clegg hooked me up with his engineer who knew Husky Hoskell, this guy.
Yes.
And then I sent him the music. I said, please mix my album. It's my first album. And
wow.
To my big surprise, he actually responded and said, I love the music. If you want to come over to LA. So I went to LA and spent a week mixing the music with him. And so, that it was just mind-boggling. He was this, it was very hard because he was just like considered the best engineer in the world. And here was me with my first album, and I still had to tell him what I didn't like. A lot of the stuff that I didn't like initially. And it was hard to like stand my ground.
So those people are a very special sort of talent as well, right? I mean, sound engineers, producers, that is a tough business to become.
It is. The mixing engineer is so critical in a project.
Particularly when you're putting together lots of different kinds of sounds.
Yeah, but even simple music. In South Africa, we've got incredible talent. We have the best music talent.
Agreed.
We have a richness of culture and music.
And all over the country, by the way. Yeah. People always give like Cape Town and lion's share of the glory there. But we have amazing musicians all over South Africa.
Once I started traveling, I only realized this. Before that, I took it for granted. And but what we don't, I still mix my albums overseas because the best engineers in the world, we do have some excellent engineers here. But I think that's where South Africa can improve a little bit on the production and also on the business of music. We have got this incredible potential, but we don't export the music and do the business of music well enough. So I think there's some room for improvement.
Someone in the comments says here, do you ever get mistaken for Arnold Vosloo? That's funny.
Oh no, I'm not going to be able to.
No, exactly.
No, that doesn't happen.
And then Shaq's Life says it would be crazy if he said he listens to Kendrick Lamar, who of course did the halftime show at the Super Bowl.
Yeah,
I mean, you know of all these people. You obviously listen to a mix of music. So you wouldn't have never heard Kendrick.
Sorry?
You wouldn't have never heard Kendrick.
No, I was at the Grammys. He performed there.
Right.
And he won.
Yeah, so take that and fucking shove that down you. How's that, huh? He was at the Grammys and saw Kendrick. So I'll say it for you.
I listen very widely. So I do listen to all kinds of music. I find it very interesting. There's good music in all genres.
What do you think, says someone else here in the comments, what do you think about looping culture popping up? So when people take, a sample of music and then they loop it into stuff, and it's not necessarily anything new. They just do something over that original piece of music.
I like it.
You don't have a problem with it?
No, I think it gives a fresh perspective. Take a really beautiful melody that's very old-fashioned, but put a modern beat around it, feel around it. And I do some of my own looping. I have done shows where I just loop all the flutes. I've got my contrabass flute, which is taller than I am, my bass flute, alto flutes, and I just layer.
I'd forgotten that you get we're so used to seeing the kind of smaller ones.
Yeah.
You get those much better. What is
Kifness has turned looping into an art form.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Genius. He's genius. And he's obviously also become very, very politically outspoken. Not that he wasn't before, but now he just doesn't care. The thing about the music business, though, and you were talking about the business of it earlier, is that at least for you, it's fairly simple. You can travel with one or two of those flutes. It doesn't have to take up a huge amount of space in your bag. Anything almost every other instrument just takes up an enormous amount of space by comparison.
Yeah, unless I travel with my contrabass flute, which is
That's the big one.
Yeah,
but usually, do you have special cases for these?
Yeah,
And,
I have a special.
I mean, are some of
case.
these flutes extremely expensive? And
Yeah, my main flute is a solid gold flute.
Solid gold.
Yeah, it's like a 10 carat,
Wow.
10 carat gold flute. And
is that because gold is particularly resonant? We know it's a very malleable metal. We know it's quite ductile.
Yeah, there's quite a bit of debate around it. Nobody's actually proven that gold sounds better than silver, but it could be that the maker of the flute, when you know it's made of gold, you take a little bit more care.
Yeah, you're not going to just we'll just drill a hole here and fix this, or we'll just patch this up with some.
But also silver tarnishes and gold doesn't.
Yeah. But I mean, we buy it for the sound.
Yeah.
So I just don't care if it's gold or silver, but it just the way, maybe it does affect you when you pick up a gold flute,
yeah.
because it's
there's a reason that they cover these Grammys in gold.
Yeah, it could be the placebo effect. You just play it and it feels better.
People they see it, they know what that is. They know that's value.
Yeah,
right
yeah.
there. Well, you are value, and it's great to have you here. And I really appreciate you coming to spend some time with us.
Thank you so much.
Congrats again on another Grammy. And what are those medals? Just show us those on the table next to you.
Oh, these are.
As if these two awards on the table. The third one's on its way. Is that right? Yeah, the third one's still heading here from the US. He only received it at the award ceremony the other day. Yeah, but these medals, tell me about these.
These are the nomination medals.
Oh, right.
So they are, the highlight of the Grammy. This is the latest one. The highlight of the Grammy week for me is the nominee dinner, which is the eve of the Grammys.
Yeah.
And like everybody is celebrating their music, because to get nominated you have to be top 5 in the world in that genre,
right?
So it's just an incredible achievement. And the eve of the Grammy, nobody's lost yet. And
that's a good point. Yeah.
Everybody's happy, nobody's disappointed. So this is the latest one. It's just very beautiful. So everybody puts theirs on, and you have a huge social event. It's just a huge party. And it's my favorite event at the Grammys.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah.
How many people are at that dinner?
Probably 300,
wow,
400.
What a select group of musical genius there must be in that room.
It is just amazing. And that's where some new collaborations get started.
I'm sure.
Because you start talking, the wine is flowing. Everybody's full of ideas.
Well, in case you're looking for anyone to collaborate with next, Dave says he's got an ocarina band called the Fluty Loops. And perhaps, if you really hit the skids, Wouter, which I don't think is ever going to happen, but if you really desperately need to collaborate with someone who's probably quite shit, just telling from his name here, Dave's got the Fluty Loops. Okay?
That sounds interesting, ocarina. Yeah. And if
he's being very diplomatic.
And Dave, if you get stressed from all the ocarina playing, just head over to YouTube or Spotify, because this latest album that we made is healing music for stressful people.
Oh, who doesn't need that?
Yeah. So we made this album specifically with a healing intent, with a healing spirit.
That's so clever, because people need that.
Yeah, so
it's a big thing at the moment. All right, well, thank you, gentlemen. Very nice to have had you both here this morning, and thank you for being part of what's been a very, very fun way to start our Wednesday.
Thanks,
and
Gareth.
Again, congratulations, Wouter. It's just so great to see you doing so well.
Thank you.
Bringing home the bacon and making South Africa proud. I love it.
I was really hoping you'd actually give us a small performance.
But
no pressure.
You're going to pay for that. You're going to pay for that.
Yeah, but also then YouTube would probably end up saying, "No, hang on, copyright strike."
Probably, yeah. That's why we can't even play a clip.
Yep.
Otherwise, they would. No, we'll definitely come and see you when you play at Kirstenbosch. They need to get their act together and book you.
I will fly down to Cape Town for that.
Hell yes. See?
Absolutely.
That's already...
okay, let's put that in motion.
Let's make it happen. What do they say? Manifest.
Yeah.
But I love this idea of the healing music too, because who doesn't need that?
Yeah.
All right, very good. Shaq's Life says, I'm going to listen to his music this morning. What the heck? Let's try something new. So obviously someone who's never listened to your stuff before, going to give it a go.
Yeah,
Awesome.
We've got more than 100 music videos on YouTube.
Amazing.
Yeah, just one by one over the years. And the most recent ones are the healing. But we've also got some upbeat over the times, for example, with the Ndlovu Youth Choir.
Sure. Yeah. Sure. Thanks, guys. And thank you, everybody. We will see you on Friday at 6 a.m. Yeah, make sure we're all up and bright and early and at it. All the rest of it, and enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Just don't get upset about stuff on social media, right? It's really easy. You just decide, I'm not going to get upset, and then you don't. If you find that you are, switch the phone off. Get away. Make your life happier. Real life is better than the virtual life. You can get to listen to things like Voters Music. We will see you on Friday. Ciao.
For Best New Age, Ambient, or Chant Album, the nominees are Ricky Cage, Wouter Kellerman, Eru Matsumoto, and Chandrika Tandun. Ruichi Sakamoto, Anushka Shankar, Radhika Vikaria,
and the Grammy goes to Bantwini.
Thank you so much. This is amazing. This is testament to the fact that music has the power to unite and to heal. Thank you, Chandrika. Thank you, Aaron, all the musicians that were on the album. A big thank you to Tulsi, best friend and business partner. And then most importantly to all of you, music connects. And this is a very grateful to share this moment with you.